Elder Christian Abraham Ackah, an eminent person in the history and development of the SDA Church in Ghana and West Africa. Elder Christian Abraham Ackah was born in the year 1883 and he died in the year 1912 at the age of 29. Historical records for almost a century have proved that the contribution of Christian Abraham Ackah surpasses that of everybody in Ghana as at the time, that is, during his era. Christian Abraham Ackah was the real founder of Adventism in Ghana, apart from the fact that it was Francis I.U. Dolphin of Apam who found the tract at the coast of Apam, and that of William Kweku Atta Dawson of Fete, who was also the first to build a church or a temple and a mission house for the SDA Church in Ghana, which was located at Mayenda. Early life, education and marriage. C.A. Ackah was born in 1883 at Ackah, a town 7 kilometers west from River Ankobra, and founded in 1500 AD. So that town has been existing for almost or a little above 500 years. The name of Ackah's father was Ejah Ackah. Ackah received a formal education at the Castle School at Axim, which was built in 1515 AD by the Portuguese. He was a teacher by profession and also a businessman. His business took him to Cape Coast in the year 1903. He got baptized in 1903 in Cape Coast. He got married to a Fanti woman from Cape Coast in 1907 when he was 24 years old. C.A. Ackah and his wife had only 2 boys before he traveled abroad. His first son became the first principal, now vice chancellor, at the University College of Cape Coast, now University of Cape Coast, in the person of Dr. C.A. Ackah Jr. He was born in 1908 and died in 1998 at the age of 90 years. The second son was David Theodore Ackah. He was born on 2nd August 1910 and died on 11th November 2002 at the age of 92 years. He was the first managing director of the Diamond Marketing Corporation in Ghana. So this disproved the general notion that the Ackahs of Kekam do not live long. It was just a coincidence that C.A. Ackah, the founder of Adventism in the Western region, died at 29, but his descendants actually lived longer. Conversion and baptism. C.A. Ackah was a leading member of the Methodist Church in Cape Coast before his conversion into Seventh-day Adventism in 1903. C.A. Ackah first heard the Advent message at Cape Coast around 1900 at Cape Coast through some friends who had earlier studied the tract found by I.U. Dolphin at the coast of Apam. According to some contemporaries of this is what they had on their records. But whatever the case, Ackah's official baptism and membership into the SDA Church took place in 1903 by James M. Hyde in Cape Coast. He wrote to the General Conference of the SDA Church in America in 1908, saying, and I quote, "I was known by the public as a Sabbath keeper in the year 1903 when James M. Hyde and his wife Marion were in town. But now I am known by individuals as a minister where I am not." Unquote. This is what Ackah wrote to the General Conference in 1908. Ministerial work, in other words, missionary work. As the adage goes that charity begins at home, Ackah found it proper to share this Advent message with his relatives and friends at home from this time on and did more research on the Sabbath. It is on record that a month after his baptism in 1903, a voice was heard in the town hall of Kekam, addressing the people of the town. The voice was clear with unmistakable tone, like a Hebrew prophet, modulated towards a crescendo for the urgency of the Advent message. And that was the voice of C.A. Ackah. Within few years, C.A. Ackah established the first three SDA schools at his own expense. He established the first SDA school in Cape Coast in February 1907, which was meant purposely for the training of church workers. Secondly, he established Ackah SDA School at Kekam in June 2008, and this was official SDA school which was meant not only for training of church members, but for everybody, irrespective of your faith. Thirdly, Ackah SDA School, Axim. This one was also established in the year 1909. All these schools had elementary department for children and evangelism for adults after some time. C.A. Ackah also established the first two organized SDA churches in Ghana, namely Kekam SDA Church and Axim SDA Church. This is how Ellsworth Olsen put it in his book Adventism in Ghana, published in 1924, and I quote, "Early in 1909, agent request having come from the Gold Coast, C.E.F. Thompson went to Kekam and Axim and conducted a series of meetings among the Nzema people. That year, D.C. Babcock visited these points, held further meetings with the people, and baptized about 50 believers, organizing churches at Kekam and Axim. D.C. Babcock organized Kekam Church on Tuesday, 19th October 1909, unquote. On that day, when Kekam's church was organized, C.A. Ackah, who was the first literature evangelist in Ghana, was ordained as the church elder, and he became the first ever ordained elder in Ghana as part of the organization, which took place at Kekam. The second organized church in Ghana also took place in the same district. On Sabbath, October 23rd, 1909, Babcock organized the second Seventh-day Adventist church in Ghana, that of Axim, the Nzema capital. The organization of Kekam Church elevated Adventism in Ghana because it became the first organized SDA church in Ghana and the second organized church in the whole of West Africa, following that of Waterloo in Sierra Leone, which was also organized in 1906. C.A. Ackah then became an executive committee member of the West African Union Mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in 1909. C.A. Ackah and C.E.F. Thompson, a Sierra Leonean who was also working in the SDA missionary, became executive committee members. Thompson, a Sierra Leonean SDA missionary to Ghana, then stationed at Axim, together with Ackah, were the two delegates that represented Ghana at the very first general meeting of SDA workers in West Africa, held in Sierra Leone for some 9 days. That is from October 10th to 18th in the year 1910. Their reports at the session focused on their two mission bases in Nzema land, that is Kekam and Axim. Kekam and Axim had about 100 Sabbath keepers as at the time. In his report to the 37th General Conference session in Washington, D.C. on June 6, 1909, D.C. Babcock also touched on Ackah's labor for Seventh-day Adventism in Ghana, acknowledging his utility and dynamism for God's cause and Adventism. Brother C.A. Ackah took up the book work at Cape Coast, Gold Coast, and other points, and has dispensed 500 worth of books and other literature. He also held some meetings in his native village among the Nzema people and reports 43 Sabbath keepers. The finale of Pastor D.C. Babcock's visit to Ghana in October 1909 was the deal the pastor struck with C.A. Ackah on the complete transfer of the Kekam SDA church and school assets or properties from Ackah's personal control, management, and ownership to that of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. In In one of Pastor D.C. Babcock's report to the General Conference of SDA headquarters in Washington, D.C., he remarked, "I am glad to say that I have just returned from the Gold Coast and have had settlement with Brother Ackah and have taken over the property he has for the mission so that all others will be made through the office at free time from this time onwards." Ackah was a trainer of teachers. Some teachers who served at Ackah SDA school during the early years of its existence include J.D. Hayford, Francis Dolphin, J.A. Bonney, Samuel Duncan Mogg, and John Gabra, who later became the first Ghanaian ordained minister in the SDA Church, whose ordination took place in Waterloo in the year 1921. Among C.A. Ackah's students who later became ministers were Pastor Solomon Benjamin Essien, who also happens to be the second Ghanaian to be ordained as a minister in the SDA Church, which also took place in Ghana in the year 1935. Other students of Ackah were Isaac Ackah Benson, James Euradimiezan Alu, and others. In 1911, C.A. Ackah felt that D.C. Babcock and other foreigners who succeeded him, that is Babcock, do not understand the Ghanaian culture and how things work or operate in Ghana. He then decided that at the beginning of 1912, he will visit the General Conference headquarters to explain to the higher body how things work in Ghana. He made a transit in Britain. Whilst in Britain, he suffered from acute pulmonary tuberculosis. This finally led to his death. He died on Thursday, 25th April 1912 at the age of 29 in Wales. In summary, let's listen to the legacy, the impact, or the achievement of C.A. Ackah. The history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Ghana would never be complete without mentioning C.A. Ackah due to the following reasons. 1. He was the founder of the first two organized SDA churches in Ghana, namely Kikam Church and Axim Church, which both took place in 1909. 2. Ackah was the founder of the first two SDA schools in Ghana, situated at Cape Coast and Kika in 1907 and in 1908, and even there was a third school which was established in 1909, situated at Axim. 3. Ackah was the first ordained elder in the history of the SDA Church in Ghana, which took place on Tuesday, 19th October 1909. 4. Ackah was the first literature evangelist in Ghanaian SDA Church, and his appointment as a literary evangelist took place in the year 1905. Fifthly, Ackah was the first Ghanaian executive committee member of the then West African Union Mission. His appointment took place in 1909, which gave him the right to represent Ghana at both General and Executive Committee meetings at the West African Union Mission with the headquarters in Sierra Leone. Sixthly, Ackah was a trainer of seasoned teachers. Among the people he trained were evangelists J.D. Hayford, Francis Dolphin, J.A. Bonney, Samuel Duncan Mogg, and John Gabra, who later became the first Ghanaian ordained minister in the SDA Church. Even though Francis Dolphin preceded Ackah in Adventism, it came to a point he sat and learned from Ackah. Seventhly, Ackah was the trainer of youth for youth evangelism, and also the trainer for the youth who were later used for evangelism in Ashanti and other regions in Ghana. And these youths, among some of them, were S.B. Essien, J.M. Alu, I.A. Benson, and others. These three mentioned here later became part of the pioneer pastors ordained in the then Gold Coast. Eighthly, Ackah transferred his personal property to the SDA Church. That is, the transfer of the property in the first two SDA schools and church buildings and other assets acquired personally from his own name to that of the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists when Pastor D.C. Babcock visited him in October 1909. There are a lot that Ackah did that time and space will not allow me to talk about here. Again, there are a lot more to write about this pioneer Adventist educationist. But as I have said, time and space will not allow me to write all or talk about all of them. And it is for this reason that Professor Owusu Mensah, the renowned Adventist historian in Africa, remarked, if, however, I had the power and the right to do so, I would name Valley View University, founded 70 years later in Ghana in 1979 after C.A. Ackah, who handed over his Kekam, Ackah's SDA school, to the General Conference of SDA in 1909 as Ackah's University in honor and memory of Christian Abraham Ackah of Kekam. C.A. Ackah will forever be remembered in the SDA Church history. To God be the glory. Great things he has done.